Yeah.
Okay, great. So tell me, where were you during lockdown in March 2020?
Okay, March 2020, right before lockdown, actually, when it went into place, I was
Yeah.
actually in America.
Okay.
So I was in creation with Ballet Idaho,
Mhm.
and we were scheduled to perform and premiere work. And literally the day of the premiere, we got closed down, and I had to then figure out how I was going to get home. So
Mhm.
everything was actually going into lockdown, and the flights were being cancelled. It was almost impossible to get back on another flight. Um, and luckily I managed to, and then I was in Zurich for the remainder of lockdown.
Mm.
Yeah.
And and then of course many other projects being cancelled for you as well from there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Mm.
kind of one of these dominoes, what everyone was feeling. I think we all, every time that inbox sort of gave you that
Mm.
notification, it was like, do I really want to open it? Um,
Yeah.
we kind of know what's going to be in there.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's since then been kind of like a rescheduling ongoing process to either try to put those ones back in, or, reshuffling onto years to come.
Yeah. You're saying that thing about the inbox. You know what?
Yeah.
That could actually be something that we take away from this time, that emails, that people would tend and not be so eager to read emails. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I don't want to know. We know what it's gonna bring. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I really think we will have this sort of anxiety towards emails because of
It could be
all
what the
these
news is gonna
cancellations.
be.
Yeah, but this premiere that you had that was shut down. Do you think that would be you would be able to do that again? Is that on the cards for you again?
Um, Interestingly enough, yes, it is on the cards within the
Wow.
last week.
Oh wow, that's
So
great.
it's very, we're talking about it again, and I think theatres, like everywhere, America is still closed for the moment. They put their entire seasons digital at that point, at like for this entire season. Um, and yeah, we've talked about, I think, possibly opening their season um, with that program again, the one that was actually the one that closed down.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, there is a chance that we will bring back that work.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah.
yeah.
So during the time in lockdown, how did you motivate yourself, or what did you work on?
I was extremely lucky because I had a commission with Oregon Festival here in Switzerland.
Mm.
It's a summer festival that happens July, August. And when everything did get locked down, there was always this kind of ongoing conversation with the festival to see,
Mm.
no one knew how long it was going to
Yeah.
last. So we kind of used that time to start preparing. Let's say I was working with a composer, a German composer, Jonathan Heck, for the piece, and it's an hour-long work. So we had a lot of time actually to start building, let's say, that work during
Okay.
lockdown,
Mm.
not knowing, of course, whether or
Mm.
not it was going to be possible, or what was going to happen. And it was kind of from one moment of thinking, no, it's impossible. It's May. There's no way, seeing the situation the way it was. And it flipped within literally a week of getting a message saying that, yes, it's going ahead. Are you ready?
Oh,
Kind of thing, because
really?
we had,
Mm.
and luckily we had that time to prepare the work, because we were the first group actually coming to the festival, and we had a very short 5 weeks, which sounds like a long time actually in creation, but when you put together the restrictions of finding space,
Oh, yeah.
other people allowed there, the restrictions with masks, the time in between, cleaning the studios, it gave us literally not much time at all. So
Oh, I see.
yeah, and that
Mm,
wasn't obviously, it was, I was very lucky, like I say, to have that project there, to
yeah.
be building on that in
But
the.
did you have to, I mean, did you start the project from there, or was it already something in your mind and you had to rework it because of all the restrictions?
No, it was actually just before the lockdown that we started to get information from the festival, and they were bringing to light what the subject was about, because they like to theme the festival, and then
Okay.
we were able to interpret that in our own way. And so we had all that information, and then basically the piece was formed during the lockdown.
Okay.
So it wasn't really needing to be adapted, um, but it was very unsure what would be able to be possible. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Did, yeah. So that was actually a, if you will look back on this, on that creation or that creative process, it would be almost like with in the back of your mind the whole time, okay, but the dancers can't be too close, or something like that, or was that the case?
That was actually a big subject of, um, we weren't sure if they would be allowed to touch and to
Oh,
actually
I
do
see. Yeah.
duet material. So we also, when we began, the way that the piece was formed, it was each dancer had a motive, a musical motive, which then morphed into their journey throughout the piece. And depending on who they interacted with, it developed from there. So we basically started in the safe zone
Mm,
with those motives, with each dancer individually. And bit by bit, as we felt, okay, it's getting okay, we can go there, we can do that. Um, but it was still very unsure until the last minute. And even still now, I think, which we're all able to deal with much better, but it's this ongoing, constant
mm,
evaluation each period of time that we get as to which shift we need to make. Um, so it was definitely an unsure process.
yeah.
Um,
But if what I wonder about is that how this will, from you as a choreographer, for example, um, I would think so initially, when like you say, then when you worked on this project or this
mm,
choreography, then it was all new and you weren't sure how to, how much would be allowed, and how the dances could be. And of course, it was probably out of a creative process. There were these obstacles or these hurdles that you had to also overcome. So it was not just a free process that you would have done otherwise. Am I right?
um, yes and no. The situation in Switzerland has actually been not as restrictive, I think, as other places.
Mm.
So the dancers have always been able to uh, connect, let's
Yeah.
say,
Mm.
obviously within the guidelines of masks,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
when they
Yeah.
cannot be at certain places that I work now, because I'm working with quite a lot of the institutions in Switzerland. They have, certain time periods where then everything needs to be aired, the studios need to be open, everyone needs to be out of them before
Mm.
you can then re-enter. But they haven't necessarily restricted us in uh, doing partnering work, let's
Oh,
say.
I see. Okay.
Um,
So that's
yeah,
that's basically as normal as you would have done that.
surprisingly, yes. It
Okay.
was, the question was more about the performances,
Mm.
whether or not it would be allowed there, and how that would have to be, if that would be with masks, without masks.
Mm.
But we were never restricted to say that we could not.
Mm.
I think because they they put everyone into, say, a bubble, you know, like the company was a bubble, and if you were working, it was mainly me that
I
had to stay
see.
away from them. So my distance absolutely had to become greater from the
Mm,
dancer.
mm.
Um, yeah.
I spoke to a conductor, and he said that with the orchestras, for example, being so far away, the musicians being so far away from each other, the sound is different, and that the CD recordings, for example, is not 100% like it should be, and that it would be, we were talking about that certain things would be specifically, you know, noticeable from this time. Do you think we will have this in dance as well? That you as choreographers, even without you knowing, maybe subconsciously, create differently, and that we will in say 20, 30 years time, even longer, uh, you know, that there would be a specific
There could
sign
be.
that this came from this time period.
Absolutely, there could be. I mean, I think everyone works differently with their approach anyway. Um, I'm a very physical person in the studio with my dancers, so I like to be involved as much as I can. But this has definitely, like I say, put that distance there greater than what it was before. And what that has done has made that communication between us and that dialogue that happens in the studio, it's much more uh, even more collaborative in a way. I feel, for me personally,
Really?
like I'm
Mm,
asking more of them. I'm explaining what I would like, an idea, but it's also asking them much more about what they feel while I'm giving them that indication of what it is that I'd like them to do. Um, so I do think there might be. I'm not aware of it, and I don't know that I'm consciously
yeah.
thinking about it as I'm doing it right now. But I mean, this time is so significant, I think, for all of us, that there will be a repercussion going
Mm,
on in the future for sure. I think, I don't know what I think. I think it's a lot longer of a period than what maybe we all expected as well. And I think
mm,
that's going to uh, bring a different kind of urgency to the work, or possibly the performance, or what it is that people are wanting to express. Um, if I, yeah, so I think we could see something.
mm. Do you as a choreographer, do you find that you are more creative in this isolation, or do you need this? Do you need all the hustle and bustle of everyday life to be creative, or you know, that you find this time of that you had more time to think about, or to be more creative in that sense?
Um, I don't know whether it's more creative or less creative.
Mm,
Um, I think the approach is different, like we were saying. I think the influence is different. So yes, the hustle bustle of everyday life for
mm,
sure. Um, it really depends again where you come from. If you're doing a piece that is related to life or yourself, or you know, these, let's say,
mm,
now situations, then you will be affected. But there's many different ways of creating works. Um, Space is great, I think, to investigate more, to have more time to uh, follow ideas without any pressure in time, let's say. But then there's also something beautiful about when you do have that uh, time limit, in a way that you,
yeah.
yeah, it creates a different path.
Mm.
Yeah.
And about the dancers, this I talk to dancers a lot about this thing, this idea of them being in this confined space. Well, they were, and they're not obviously not rehearsing as much as they used to, or and also because they have like you say, they are in these bubbles, and the times of the classes are
Hmm.
also divided and so on. So there are many things. And of course, the first period of lockdown was a long time for them to be at home and in confined spaces where they used to being in studios, and they used to these movements, big movements and so on. Um, so now, obviously, the dancers now are not physically the same as they were, say, 2 years ago. If you did the same piece with them 2 years ago, uh, can you see that? Can they do they feel that also? You know, like in their bodies, that must be that the muscles are not 100% there as it used to be. So do you think that affects the whole performance and how they do it?
I think it will. I mean, it has to in a certain way. The one word that comes to mind when I think of the dancers that are dealing with this now, because I try and put myself in that situation, thinking, man, how would have I dealt with what they are dealing with? And the most prominent thing that I get is just resilience. The
Mm.
resilience of the dancers is really remarkable. That they what they are faced with, yet they don't seem to deter from their determination. You know, they are being dealt so many different situations to actually do their work, but they are just limited by what they have and can do. Um, so I do think that they will be feeling for sure an impact in their bodies. But that same urgency that we spoke about in a creative sense, I think there's going to be a outburst of artists ready to pour their
Really?
hearts out on their stage
Yeah.
and really perform to an audience again, because that's why they do it. That's why we create. It's always to connect to our audience. I mean, without that, it doesn't have the same sense in a way.
Yeah.
You know, what they do all day every day, or if they can't do it all day at the moment, is it's really hard. It's they give themselves completely, physically, mentally, emotionally, and I think they need that connection with the audience. And it's nice to see slowly it kind of coming back. So I mean, I do think it will play an effect for sure, but yeah.
Yeah, because the reason why I talk to so many dancers also, I think we have to also understand that they start their training as a young age, say at if I just think, for example, at a ballet school, they start their training at around the age of 11.
Mm,
And since that time, sometimes they are in this group together, even if they leave the upper school or you know, at 17, sometimes they are, you know, in some way connected to each other. And then they go to a company and it's all there as well. This, even then they're not always friends, but in the company setting, they are a group together doing these things.
mhm,
And yeah, and I'm thinking about that as well, that you know, that for them there's so many aspects for them uh, to deal with in this time.
mhm.
And yeah, and then and it's interesting that you say that you think there's going to like be a burst of artistic
I
energy
think
going, yeah,
I think there is. I think they are waiting to get
to
that
do that,
stage and to
yeah.
connect with their audience. I mean, that
Mm,
was everyone's dream, you know, when they were a little
yeah.
child wanting to dance. That's why you wanted to do it, to
Mm,
be on stage and to perform. Of course, you know, there's a beautiful process that happens in the studio, and it's very important. But at the end, it's really that thing that has been taken away from them. You know, like yes, we've been taken out of our rehearsal spaces, and they've had to deal with their kitchen floors and their 2 meter targets on the ground
yeah.
that they can work with, but
Yeah.
they could still find their way, and they have found their way.
Mm,
But I think that one last bit is just to get on stage and
and
be
to
given
do
the
it.
chance to do what they love to do.
But tell me, how did you start in dance?
I started, my mother had an amateur school in Australia for 44 years, and I
Okay.
started learning to dance with her.
Oh,
I-
wow. That's amazing.
yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely in the family for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I started with more theatrical dance.
Mm.
I enjoyed tap dance, jazz dance,
Oh, yeah.
a
Yeah.
whole lot. Ballet, my love for ballet came a little bit later. Um, but yeah, from a young age, I learned to dance from my mother.
That's wonderful. And then you went to in Australia to a ballet school, or how did you do? Yeah.
From there, I went to a private full-time school in Melbourne called
Yeah.
Dance World 301. And after 3 years there, at the age of 15, I joined New Zealand School of Dance. And
Okay.
I graduated from there. And my first engagement was with the Finnish National Ballet afterwards.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So quite different spectrums
Yes.
of the world.
And how did you find living then in Europe?
The initial shock of coming to Europe, I mean, I wasn't just in Europe, I was Scandinavia.
Oh,
And from,
yeah.
yeah, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
being
yeah.
in the coldness, it was going into summer for us in Australia, New Zealand, which is extremely hot,
Mm,
into minus 30 degrees in Finland. So that was, first of all, a big shock.
mm,
Um, but a, I was lucky to have, within my training, the opportunity to travel a bit to, let's say, to some Asian countries and to America, not so much to Europe actually, but so I was sort of exposed to different things, which I
mm,
definitely think helped the transition for sure.
mm. Because that's also interesting that the of the many artists that I photograph, uh, I discovered that so many are from all over the world, and this is part of the sacrifice that the musicians make to be
Mm,
able to do this art. And with musicians, it's the same thing. They come from all over, and yeah, that is very interesting how you adapt to that, and if it's just the fact that you want to do this so much that
mm,
you adapt to that, being away from your family. And of course Australia is quite far away.
it is, yeah.
Mm,
It's I think it's something that you're always adapting to.
mm,
I don't know. It changes also with different periods of your career. I think I was at such a young age when I left home. I was 12 when I first moved to Melbourne and away from my family,
mm,
and then 15 when I went to New Zealand, and then 18 in Finland. So
mm,
somehow that just kind of, I mean, it was all very exciting. A teenager going
mm.
to live in New Zealand, going to live in Finland. I mean, you just
Yeah.
kind of like went with it. It was exactly like you said, it was a dream.
Mm,
Um, I think now it's even harder than it was before, particularly with the situation the way it is. To get to Australia now is near to impossible,
mm.
like with the restrictions that we have. Whereas before, yes, it's really far, but it is really only 24 hours away. It's not
Yeah.
so bad in the big scheme of things. Of course, it's money and all these other things that come into it. And you don't have that connection with your family that you would love to have.
Mm.
But at the moment now, it's sort of the possibility is not even there.
Yeah.
So I think it's almost even harder now than it was before, pandemic.
Mm. Yeah, I know. I'm from South Africa, and I know what you're talking about. It's just, yeah,
Yeah,
you have that possibility to get on a plane and to go if you really
yeah,
want to go. And but
yeah,
now it's just with all this, it's just impossible to
yeah,
to go. Yeah.
yeah.
But I also talk about with artists about the value of art, and if you think that art and artists are valued.
I I hope so. I mean, they should be. Um, I think it's necessary. I think it's something that has evolved, and I think it's evolving, and um, I think it's a very important thing in life. And like that's why I say I hope it's
Mm,
valued the way that actually we see it and we know it. I think everybody has a very personal relationship to art, and
mm,
I think your influences in life, where you are in your life, what you're experiencing, you can also look at it very differently.
mm,
You know, if we talk about a performance, you can see it at one point in your life and react to it in one way, and you can see it much later in life and you will completely have a different opinion or
mm.
reaction to what you've seen. And it's exactly, well, no, it's probably not exactly the same thing, but
Yeah,
just,
I understand what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, like um that's why I say I think it's a very individual, personal connection that you do have with it. And yeah, I really do hope that it is valued.
But
um,
I see, for example, if you take dance or ballet, if you take ballet, for example,
mm,
you find people don't really, or I say ballet lovers, of course, they understand ballet and they understand, and they know a little bit about, you know, what goes on in the ballet world.
mm,
But there's a lot of people who don't understand the world of ballet and don't understand ballet, and you get these cliched remarks about boys doing
yeah,
ballet and about, you
yeah,
know, tutus, and you know, if somebody says ballet, then they immediately think tutu.
mm,
And what do you think? How can that be changed? How can we? Because especially, I think I don't know how it is in Australia, but
mm,
even if I think my son grew up in England, and even in England, uh, you know, they were in the ballet, in the local little ballet schools, there were only 2 or 3 boys
mhm,
doing ballet and the rest were girls. And, you know, when he was younger, of course, then the boys used to not be so kind about this, the fact that he's not playing football and
mm.
that he's doing ballet. So, um, yeah, do you have that same experience?
Yeah, I mean, um, I do think it is shifting ever so slowly. You know, I like to be able to see things. Of course, things can always take a further step. I think it's really important to be able to see what we would like it to be, and to also to figure out how you can be a part of bringing it there. But I do like to acknowledge also the, even if they are small steps that have been taken, like you say, when I think back to myself growing up, there were not as many boys dancing as that what there are now. So
Mm,
already there is a very different approach to it, and I
mm.
think there's many things that have contributed to that. I think for one, the presence online has changed
Oh yeah.
drastically people's view and opinion of dance. I think the modern influence in a contemporary way has also opened up theatres and maybe made it less intimidating to people to actually enter a theatre and not understand classical ballet or what it is that they're going to go and see, even though also you have that same uh, thought to a more contemporary work. I do think there are these things that actually have influenced and opened up the doors. And I think we need to continue doing that more. And we
Mm.
need to find ways to educate more.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's really our, one of our responsibilities is to try and educate people that don't know, and also to make them feel that it's okay not to know. It's
Mm,
absolutely fine. Um, but yeah, I do like to look at, you know, how far we have actually come, and
mm,
also to acknowledge it would be great for that just to keep going
mm.
further,
And
for
do you
sure.
think uh, that if dancers, for example, or choreographers like yourself, uh, connect in a way, like say online, but not in the sense how many fouettes the dancer does, but that they talk about, that they really talk about the art, and choreographers talk about what they're creating, and what the inspirations are, and so on. That they're, I'm not talking about getting everybody to like ballet or to be interested in ballet, but that there will be people who would be, you know, um, get this connection, or be inquisitive. What is this all about? And let me go and visit the theater, or let me go and follow this choreographer and see what he does. And I almost think that we have these platforms like social media to do this type of thing, and that that it should be used, and sort of to educate as well.
Absolutely, it should be used to educate. I do think social media is one of those funny things. It's taken off. It's going very quick. It serves a great purpose, but I do think we misuse it. It is misused, and I think there's missed opportunities, like you say, to educate people, to talk about things. I do see it happening more. I think as choreographers, we are asked a lot more to talk about our work. And it's always one of those um, tricky kind of things, because sometimes you don't want to impose too much on the viewer
Oh,
as
yeah.
an idea in front of it. But there is also a lot of people that find it very beneficial to not be so overwhelmed about what it is that they're seeing. So it's that balance of trying to, when is it the right time to do it? How should we do it? But it is definitely something that does get asked a lot more of us, I believe, now than what used to.
Yeah, I see also the ballet companies now, for previews, do this type of thing. But then I almost think that the people who will then see it would be people who are interested in going. And I almost think you have to catch people who,
Who
they
don't
don't
have
even have a
that.
clue what, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
and make this. And also like you doing a choreography, but it takes such a long time for it to actually get on stage, and the process and the costumes and everybody involved. It's such a great project that, and I wonder sometimes if people visit the theater, and see this, but they don't really understand what this whole long process behind it is.
For sure. I mean, for sure. I think that's a really hard one uh, to connect with, and to make that understanding. I'm not sure we would ever quite achieve that fully, but I dare say there's a lot that don't understand what goes into what we do. Yeah.
And then it brings me to the actual um, education of children,
Hmm.
that I think, and I'm talking to everybody about this, because I think it's for me very a strong point, that we should start reconsidering the education system and make art a very important part of children's education.
Hmm.
That we don't see art just as a side subject or as an afternoon activity, but really a subject to be studied. Because I
Hmm.
wonder how many children could benefit from, for example, dance and movement, and the understanding, and even if they don't become dancers, that they just have that possibility to express themselves
Mm.
through art.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you see it happening, but I do believe that it can go further for sure. I think education programs are definitely something that aren't to be overlooked. I know it's always a time, money kind of restraint issue from companies, let's say, but for sure, you do see them more and more happening. And those outreach programs, bringing art or bringing dance in particular to people that don't have that possibility to do it. And it can be a very beautiful thing when it happens. But it is the future of our art form. They are the future
Yeah.
of it. So of course we need to provide them with everything that they need in order to take that with them. Like I say, I don't have all the answers though, because there's probably many restraints that come with what um,
Yeah.
we are talking about, but I do think it is something that should never be overlooked
Mm.
at all.
I almost think that now during this pandemic, uh, the fact that art is and artists, are not able to do art and the theaters are closed. So there's a very strong highlight on this, on what artists are going through and how difficult it is for them. And I wonder if this would be a good time to start, thinking about that the reason why society thinks they don't understand this or they don't think about this is maybe because they don't have the background or they don't have the knowledge um, about what art really is and what artists really go through. That you have to study a long time and train a long time to become an artist, that it's not just at 18 you decide you want to be a pianist and you're a pianist in a
No,
6 months time in a crash course in being a
no,
pianist. So it's really a lifelong commitment. And also for dancers, it's they've all started, most of them start at a young age and then going through these stages. And we have also have to talk about or consider that a year out of dance for a dancer with such a short career, is a very long time.
oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely it is. And I think even things like this, bringing that awareness, like what you're doing, it's wonderful that you are in a sense trying to do exactly what you're asking should be done.
Mm.
So I think this is wonderful. You've found a way to try to bring what it is that you feel is missing to the world within the art form. So if more of things like this can happen.
I think the more we talk about this, because of course I didn't know much of the music world. I didn't understand. I didn't know. A tenor told me he studied 13 years,
Mm,
and I I didn't know that. Even for me,
yeah.
I know a little bit of the ballet world, but I don't know much of the music world. And if you think of that dedication and what they and all artists, it's really a lifelong dedication. It's something that's part of them. It's part of their lives. And I think it's very important that people understand that. I'm like you said, this is why I talk to artists, so that we can hear and we can try and understand what it is to be an artist, and how everybody is feeling about this. Yeah. But tell me, Craig, on a lighter note, what did you do during lockdown that was now not a real dancing to do with dancing? Did you do anything, gardening or hiking
Uh,
or what? Cooking or
Hiking. Interesting that you
anything?
said hiking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Switzerland, in Switzerland, we are graced beautifully with these gorgeous mountains around us.
Oh wow, yeah. Mm.
And it was the savior, I think. We have one actually just across the park from where we
Mm.
live. And we would hike up the mountain quite often and, be in the nature. Takes
Wonderful,
40
yeah.
minutes. Everything just sort of stopped or almost for a little while. Um, yeah, that
Yeah,
was
I've been to Switzerland a few times, and I must say the mountains and the lakes are just
just gorgeous.
so beautiful. Yeah,
So beautiful. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It was
yeah.
definitely a
Because
safer in that time.
and you had, we had time to do these types of things that we normally don't have time for. Yeah. So I hear a lot about people going into nature, and um,
Mm.
I heard somebody told me that he went fishing, that he
Ah.
never had. Yeah.
But I've been fishing in years, but it's a good moment to do it. You've got plenty of time. It takes
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that. It was. I mean, being able to connect with, I think people connected so much more with each other
Yes.
than normal. Like, of course, you not in that face-to-face value, but we were all stuck at home, no matter where you were. So I think people up through technology were
Mm,
connecting in a very different way, and it gave us time to actually reconnect with
mm,
people, which I think was so beautiful.
mm,
Like you say, everything just slowed down for a little bit. That hustle and bustle, it wasn't there. The distractions weren't there. The ongoing process of what's next, and
mm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I think going to the supermarket
When we were
was
allowed,
something exciting to do.
when you were allowed, when it was open. Oh, it's
That was,
still
yeah.
really hard to think about it, to be honest.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's how that. Yeah, no, I think these were these will be little things that we think about when you know when we think back at this time, and we will remember. Oh, do you remember we just could walk a bit slower
Yeah.
and be a little longer in bed and sit in front of the TV in our pajama pants and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah. It was a very interesting time.
Yeah. But Craig, just the last thing, what is your wish for when this is all over?
That we can take some of those things that we're talking about now further
Mm,
with us. I think there's all those influences outside. That daily life is so quick, and it's getting quicker and quicker. And we've talked a lot about how wonderful technology has been in this time, and how quick and advanced it has gotten, which I think is wonderful. But there's
mm,
also something that has made it even quicker. What you need to be, you need to be ready to respond to certain things
mm.
always. And I think it brought us back to a time when there wasn't much to respond to.
Yeah.
So if we could keep that kind of uh, not let the pace of the world overpower some of these more simple things in life, the things that matter, the things that
Mm,
that we really need to value. Um, yeah, I think if we can keep some of that, would be really nice.
mm. Yeah, that balance almost,
Yeah,
and realness. I think this realness, keeping it
I think
real.
everyone, yes, and there's been sort of something that everybody understands in a way. Like we've all experienced the same thing, but in a very different way,
Mm,
and that's brought us actually together.
mm.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so somebody said to me the other day, it would be that every time, even anywhere where you go in the world now, there will be, everybody has experienced this. So it was the
Mm.
first time actually in a long time that everybody you meet
Almost at the same
will,
time, in a
yeah,
way,
have
experiencing
this,
it together. Yeah,
yeah,
unfortunate that it
in a
was such
different
a,
way, but still we understand what lockdown means. I think
yeah.
it's
I was just about to say, a very unfortunate way for us all to kind of get on the same page, but
exactly, yeah,
we kind of
yeah,
did, well, I shouldn't speak too loudly too soon. I hope everyone's kind of on the same page.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
But Craig, this was so lovely to talk to you.
it was, thank
And
you.
thank you very much for all your insights and experiences and how you see this. And all the best for all the projects you are doing now. And I will check on Facebook because I've got you on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay, all
See
right.
what you are doing.
We're connected now, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But whenever you are, do you ever do some projects in Vienna as well?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
Yeah, not yet. Actually, no, yeah, the last 12 months have been Swiss based.
This
Yeah,
person. Okay. But
Swiss
whenever
based.
you
I think
come to
everybody's
Vienna,
been sort of Mm?
Yeah, whenever you come to Vienna, please let me know.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, maybe we can grab a coffee.
Oh, that would be lovely. That would
Yeah.
be lovely.
And talk in real,
Real.
in face to
Yeah,
face.
face to face.